Welcome in everybody to another episode of Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Lazarine Law Firm. We're coming off the heels of a devastating, disappointing, heartbreaking 31-24 loss. The Houston Cougars fall to number 8 ranked Texas Longhorns, but there's plenty to talk about. Give a heck of an effort to the Houston Cougars because they by far put together the best performance of the entire season. Joining me is Dayon. We'll get to everything that happened between Houston and Texas on the other side of the intro. It's time for the original Houston postgame show. Let's Rage Coogs.
There goes Donovan Smith. He throws it. It's Manjack. It's a touchdown. To the corner. Caught touchdown. It's Golden. Haven't called his name a lot. Right up the gut. There goes Baxter. CJ. Again, the line to make, really at the 9-yard line. Watch where he's right there. He's there. Now comes the pushback, and then see. They're going to roll him out. Pass is incomplete. Broken up. Stephon Johnson.
So, what a game. Welcome to Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Lazarine Law Firm. Dan Lazarine founded the Lazarine Law Firm to provide legal representation to individuals who have been injured or arrested in the greater Houston area. Dan Lazarine understands that bad things sometimes happen to good people. Worse, false allegations are made every day. With offices in the Houston and Sugar Land area, Dan is equipped to handle your legal needs in Harris County and surrounding counties, including Fort Bend here in Texas. If you have been injured or find yourself in other legal trouble, call the Lazarine Law Firm at 281-720-8551 or visit Dan online at www.lazarinelawfirm.com for a consultation. Dayon, let's get into it. I mean, heartbreaking is an understatement. Houston had a couple of plays there, and they could have pulled up the upset of the century, knocking down number 8 Texas. But there was really that fourth quarter a lot of issues, a lot of mistakes when it came to muff punts from Malik Fleming that was fortunately did not end up being in a turnover, but it very well could have. Matthew Golden's penalty, but there were big plays as well. And Sam Brown, just overall, the fight that Houston put in this game it was phenomenal, but it's just gut to the punch with the way it ended up going because they were right there. They were right on the cusp of potentially upsetting Texas, and honestly, they didn't even get the opportunity to.
Well, I wouldn't say they didn't get the opportunity to because they had the opportunity, many opportunities. But I get that. I get what you're getting at with that, and I agree with that. Tough game, man. Well, just watching that game was just kind of. I don't want to say it's a moral victory to kind of say you kind of hung in there, but just looking at totality of the games that they lost in the Big 12 outside of Tech kind of getting away late, Houston opportunity to win those games. And so I don't think Houston is far off from actually really contending in the Big 12. I think they had moments to win that game. I'm sure we'll get more in details of particular moments, but Donovan Smith, I think, is proven and will continue to prove if he can sustain the level of consistency that he's had so far this season. I think with this year and another year, he could play himself into being an NFL drafted quarterback.
I think we saw the good of Donovan Smith. We saw the bad of Donovan Smith with that interception. That was a costly interception too. The ball just sailed on him, and he didn't see the safety over the top, and it was a costly interception. Ultimately, they at least manage a field goal there. Maybe they're in a different position. They play things a little bit different. Joining us is Kris Gardner from the Houston Round Ball Review. Let's see if can you hear us, Kris?
Yes, I can. Yep. Sorry I'm late. I had a phone call in emergency, so I'll have to probably leave in an hour. But, yep.
No worries, no apologies.
Let me go ahead and say my piece. I'm sure you already said it. That call was horrible, man. That spot was horrible.
Yes.
I don't know. Replay, Stacey Sneed was damn near across the 9-yard line. Okay, not just at the 9-yard line. Looked like he was across.
He was at the 8.5-yard line.
Yes, and then the spot was back at the 9.5-yard line. I mean, what the hell, man?
Serious question: Could Dana Holgorsen have challenged that? Is that supposed to come from the booth? What is the?
It has to. It's a college thing, so it's different than the NFL. I think it's up to the officiating crew, not the Cougs, anybody else. I don't believe they can challenge that.
I'm not sure about the time, but I know he had one timeout. If you call a timeout there, then they'll review it. But there's also a injured player on that play. You can have time to request the officials to do it.
See, that's what I thought was happening. Yeah.
But I think this, even from him not even challenging, I think the officials dropped the ball on that. I think that's one of the officials. You see it on the replay. You call in how they communicate in their systems, and that's just something they have to correct. That's just an unfortunate situation right there for them to end the game on a missed error by the officials.
Kris, Dayon, let's be honest. The officials were terrible all game long. Think back to the holding. They threw the flag, and that was a 4th down conversion. Ultimately, Texas didn't get any points on that, but they had it right the first time. It was a hold, and then not only did they take that flag away, but when they showed the replay, it was clearly a face mask penalty against Longhorns.
Well. Even Matthew Golden's call, it was. I understand why they threw the flag, but you watch the replay, it wasn't intentional. It's like after the play, they're like jostling because of like they were blocking, and his hand got caught on his face mask. You see sometimes where a player intentionally grabs the face mask. It wasn't even that. It was accidental, and it drew a flag. But man, it was in poor officiated game for sure. Houston had a chances to win the game, although all things being said, they still had chances to win that game. I'm not mad at that 4th down call because the receiver was open, a better throw. He converts that, but I would still rather a quarterback power. You got a 6'5" quarterback over 240 pounds, and we've yet to see a quarterback sneak this season. Maybe one. And so, but like I said, I can question that call, but the call that he made was a good call because the receiver was open, ball was thrown behind him. Unfortunate situation, but so I can't really critique it too much. But Houston, they played well, man. Defense.
I agree with you because Dana's been consistent on that 4th and inches, 4th and 1. That's what he calls. He's not gonna do a QB sneak or anything like that. Maybe I should just give up on hoping that he will finally do it.
Not, I'm curious to have the rationale behind that. Maybe Donovan Smith is just not. I say that, but all he needs to do is get the ball and either go high or go low.
As Parker says, or the Eagles fans say, the tush push, man. just do that, man.
The Jalen Hurts power.
I don't know. But
Tony Emmy,
I will say that.
Yeah, Andy was close, man. Close. I was ready. I was ready for it to come on and be happy to be wrong and all those good things and ask Andy where he wants to go for the steak dinner and everything like that. But the Longhorns won with some help from the Stripes, which is what Longhorn teams have done for years and go back to Southwest Conference days and everything else. But the Cougs played well. Turnover here and there, this is the kind of effort I think fans can accept and hang their hat on.
Definitely.
So it's something to build on. But I'm going to be that guy. I'll raise the bar now. This is what I expect. Okay, I've seen Donovan Smith. It looks like Dana trusts Donovan except for 4th and inches, to run. He trusts him to make plays. And Donovan's in a groove. He's playing well. Let's see them carry it forward for the rest of the season.
I think Donovan is comfortable and he's confident in the system now. That's what I'm seeing. I think the play calling has a lot to do as well, but I think Donovan is seeing the field well. He's recognized the coverages and knowing the offense so well that he knows where to go with the football, being on the coverage and the call that he gets. And I've been very impressed with him. But you, Andy and Kris, after that Tech loss, both of you guys was like looking at the schedule like, I don't know where I can see another win. And I was telling you, I can't let you guys off the hook. And I was telling y'all, Houston has competed in these games, and they 1 or 2 calls either way, they can win. And I was like, I feel and I know
what you're saying is true.
Games. What if y'all see today to make y'all still feel the same way? Or y'all feel like, what do y'all feel?
Yeah, I still feel the same way for one very simple reason. Who's head coach? That hasn't changed. That has not changed. Okay. The effort was good. It was. But there were some things. Dayon, bottom line, you all what your record says you are. They're 3-4. Yep, they were close here, close there, but they still lost. They could be close here, and there for the next 5 games and still lose.
And to Houston's credit.
But they played well today.
These past
they played
games
against TCU, they probably would have won, but they didn't.
Against Most definitely against West Virginia, second half completely effort down to your point, like you said, against Texas Tech and against TCU. That was just something that it was not clicking for them in the second half. Whether it be the second half adjustments that both the Horned Frogs and the Red Raiders made, where it just seemed like there was a gap. There was a gap because it seemed like they could compete for a first half, and then it just fell off a cliff in the second. They found something against West Virginia, and then there was a mental lapse for those last 5 minutes. Today against Texas, Kris, I can't agree with you even more. If this is the bar has been raised, if this is the effort from week 1 against UTSA, I've never seen the Houston Cougars defense. I haven't seen the defense swarm like they did today. They were anticipating plays. They were making. There were anticipating plays. Give credit to Jamari Caldwell, who went out of the game early, but he or not early, but he went out of the game late. He was making plays early. Seemed like he was in the backfield. David, how do you say his last name? Auga. I always butcher. Owegu. He was making plays in the backfield. Nelson Caesar got the big sack on Quinn Ewers. David delivered the blow that took Quinn Ewers out the game. We're unsure how serious that's going to be for Quinn Ewers. And Chidozie Nwankwo, he made plays over the course of the game. I've never seen the defense swarm consistently. Now, they've put it in stretches, but from the second quarter onward, this Houston defense was phenomenal, and they're the only reason why Houston was in a position to win, because they stopped the Texas Longhorn offense for those 3 quarters, honestly.
And let me say real quick, the announced attendance was 42,812. 42,812.
Okay.
Does that top...
Can I respond to Andy's point that he was making? And this is what I've seen throughout the entire year. The defense from the game 1, that's the first game of the year. And so certain things will happen because you figure out who your team is. And this is what I've seen from the defense throughout the entire game, entire season, I mean. And spurts, they've given up drives. Then once they've made adjustments, buckled down, they're able to get stops. You go back to TCU, second half. You go to different games, Tech the second half, UTSA, Sam Houston, Texas. It's consistent what the defense has been able to do to give the offense time to and a chance to convert. And so that's why I've said what I said in regards to them being in games. And so I kind of disagree with that point, as if the defense has done something they haven't done all year. This has been consistent back-to-back weeks in which the defensive line and the front 7 has been able to hold their own. That's where I was surprised the most in this game, because the front 7, front 4 was able to hold their own without having to blitz or having to bring an extra man and not allow Texas just to run wild in regards to run the time of possession. And so, but other than that, the defense has been kind of doing what they've done all year, in my opinion.
I've seen it. Agree that there was an extra. There was something extra.
Sark helped. No, Steve Sarkisian helped. That fake field goal. Come on, man. What is that? You got momentum. Keep the momentum.
That's part of the game, though, because you convert them, you put them away. It's part of the game, Kris.
The play call. Now, a pass to your kicker, who's not a great athlete. There's other ways to do a fake field goal than tossing the ball to your kicker. Hope he gets 6 yards. That play call was just bizarre. But the defense played well. Andy, you said it. The defense played well. Second quarter on, they were down 21-0. Okay, you can't start slowly.
But a big portion of that too was Houston's offense. That they looked like they were outmatched that first quarter. They couldn't get anything done.
And that's the problem. The slow starts are coming back playing well. Second through fourth quarters against a lot of teams results in wins. Against a team like Texas, it was close. If it's 10-7 at the end of the first quarter, hell, 14, it was 14-0, but it gave up 21 straight points. Score something in the first quarter. Get a drive going. But they made adjustments a little bit too late. You can't have these slow starts on both ends of the ball in that first quarter.
I put that more on the players being locked in, because I love the aggressive play call to start the game, going deep to Donovan Donovan going deep to Sam Brown on the double move. He had his player beat. He just to come down with the football, which that's a play that he normally makes. Yep. Make that catch.
That sucked the life out of the team for like a few minutes.
And so I like the aggressiveness in which Dana came out and calling. I think the players just got to be a lot more locked in regards to making that play and executing it. But other than that, I really can't. I can't.
That was a great call. and Sam just dropped
execute.
it.
That's the one thing is execution in those situations, and continue to put that together in the full quarters and learning how to win and doing it.
Kris, Rex seems to agree for you with you. Expectation for the rest of the season is set. I think that's the biggest. You feel a lot of optimism for the football team, especially after last week. They figured out something against West Virginia. They put their best effort. I think we could. I don't think this is a hot take to say this is the best effort that Houston has put together under Dana Holgorsen. And I got that's going back to the 2021 season when they
even outside of last week. What's the difference between this effort and last week? What are you guys seeing? Maybe I don't understand. What are you guys seeing from today that's different from last week and the previous effort? What's the difference in your guys' opinion?
Today was the key stops.
I think Dana is calling a better game. He did a little bit of this last year. It takes him like 4, 5, 6 games into a season to realize what works. Come on, man. Dunlap and Smith started slowly in game 1. Okay. But the play calling, we said it opening season. Got to be aggressive. He hasn't been aggressive up until the last 2 weeks, calling plays and offensively. That's part of his job to know what works for your team. Earlier than game 6 and 7 in the season. The effort was there today. The effort was there last Thursday. This is what fans, we've criticized him a lot. He's the offensive guru. Well, don't take 5, 6 games to figure out what works for your team. Offensive genius.
And that's the same effort that wasn't there week 2 against Rice. And that's the frustrating portion. That's the big time frustrating portion.
And that's the thing. They took Rice for granted. Don't take any opponent for granted. You can't do that. A slow start there. They've had too many slow starts through these 7 games. That's a pattern. They can't do that. They're not good enough to spot teams like this and still come away with wins. So that's a frustration that needs to be fixed. They got to do a great job and play 4 complete quarters. The bar's been raised, but they were down 21-0 today. They were down 28-0 to Rice. Can't stop. Cut that stuff out. And then see what you can do first quarter on and carry it on through. And we start next week. We'll see. But the bar's been raised.
I'm trying to find the message on the comments, but I can't remember who. It might have been Reed who brought up the great point. The one group that looked like they were outmatched over the entire game was the offensive line, specifically when it came to run blocking, because they could not create a push whatsoever. What's Rusty Reed? He says the O-line has proven time and time again it can't get the push against anybody. And he's talking about the continued throwing on 3rd and 4th and short, which, I mean, heck, it worked phenomenal for Houston today against Texas. But
especially the right side of the line. Yep.
That was an area that they got manhandled over the course of the entire game. And ultimately, even though as controversial as that last spot was, it ended up being it was a factor in the last play of the game, the last offensive play of the game for Houston.
Yep. Parker Jenkins and Stacey Sneed, even though I think Stacey got 6 yards instead of 5, but they had 12 carries combined for 28 yards. I'm not going to toss in Donovan Smith, because some of those sacks kind of is negative yards for him for rushing. But overall, Cougs 19 attempts for 14 yards. That's, clearly that's not good enough. So the short passing game opened up intermediate stuff. So you had to make adjustments, 3-step drop, whatever, quicker, getting rid of the ball. But the run game's got to be better. Got to be better.
Put a pause on it real quickly. For those of you guys that may just be joining us, this is Let's Rage Coogs, presented by the Lazarine Law Firm. We are, of course, talking all things Houston and number 8 Texas. The Longhorns come down to Houston into TD2 Stadium, and they get into a dogfight, and they're going to feel this for the rest of the season. Obviously, we don't know entirely what's the status of Quentin Ewers, and Houston obviously is going to feel it as well. But this is Let's Rage Coogs, like I said, presented by the Lazarine Law Firm. Dan Lazarine founded the Lazarine Law Firm to provide legal representation to individuals who have been injured or arrested in the greater Houston area. Dan Lazarine understands that bad things sometimes happen to good people, and worse, false allegations are made every day. With offices in Houston and Sugar Land, and is equipped to handle your legal needs in Harris County and Fort Bend County here in Texas. If you have been injured or find yourself in other legal trouble, call the Lazarine Law Firm at 281-720-8551 or visit Dan online at www.lazarinelawfirm.com for a consultation. Of course, we also like to say thank you to today's secondary sponsor, which is Star Pizza, with multiple locations across the Houston area. Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game. And with how crazy this game was, it certainly builds up an appetite. It would be the best stop to go through to Star Pizza after the game and fill that craving that was built up after Houston and UT. I think we can all agree on this. It's a shame that these programs aren't going to see each other again on the football field for years, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's for decades again until these two programs step on the field. Kris, we can't.
But you know why? Who doesn't want to play? Continue this.
I think we saw exactly why today.
So those burnt orange people, they don't want to continue this because at some point they're afraid that the Cougar talent will get on the level or pass it, and they don't want to deal with that.
And you know what I think will take for Texas to change their mind, and which I think is highly possible from what I've seen from Houston, is change the narrative around them and be consistently good and competing for a Big 12 championship. That way, if they raise their stock, and it's not like for Texas, I can see from being objective Texas viewing Houston, it's like if we lose to Houston, it's an upset. It doesn't hurt us. So I can see if Houston's able to raise their stock maybe in a year or two down the line, and Texas is able to remain to what their expectations are in regards to their program, then I can see the teams playing because the rivalry is there, the demand is there, the money, all of that stuff in regards to off the field is there. So I mean, objectively, I can understand it from a Texas perspective. I mean, honestly.
I salute you for being objective from a Texas perspective, but a lot of them, the Longhorn folks, are not objective. Okay, too many of them still think UH is Cougar High, and that left years ago. But hey, your logic makes sense. If the Cougs raise their status, national level, competitive, winning Big 12 championships, who knows down the line? Heck, I'd be good with it somewhere down the line, face them in a bowl game and smacking them around and then say, y'all want to play us again? I'm good with that. So, hey, but Longhorn fans, Longhorn administration, they're just different. They say they want competition. No, you don't.
22 years, but they don't have a problem playing the Rice Owls on a consistent basis.
Play them every year. Yeah.
But we digress. Speaking of Rice, it just makes the way the football season has gone just more frustrating. Again, thinking back to the flashes and I mean, this is, for me, for my personal opinion, this is the high water mark for Houston this season. And Tayon, to your credit, you've been saying it since the first conference game in the Big 12 when they played TCU, that they can not only compete, but they can dethrone, they can upset, beat some of these Big 12 teams. The big caveat has been consistency. Looks like they're starting to become more consistent. But let's look at those first quarter struggles, because as crazy as the game, it ended up coming down to the wire. Texas did build a 21-0 lead, and a big reason for that was because of Houston's inability to be able to move the ball consistently on offense, which then in turn put the defense in a tough, difficult position to have to constantly be out in the field and try to stop that Texas Longhorns offense.
I think Houston had 15 total yards in the first quarter. That keeps your defense on the field. Horns had the ball in the first quarter like 10, 11 minutes in the first quarter. That's going to get you worn down, which is really more commendable for the Cougs defense after giving up, 21. They did a good job, even though supposedly from weeks ago, Cougs don't have enough depth to compete in the Big 12. Once again, they proved
they do.
Once again, they proved they do, because they came back in this game and competed and scared the hell out of the Longhorn fans, players, and probably coaches and administrators. So have something here in Houston working.
I think Houston's probably about 6 or 7 dogs away from really being able to win the Big 12, primarily on the offensive line and a few on the defensive line. But I think they're not too far away. I think Donovan Smith is the quarterback over the next. If he stayed next year, I think he can do it. You got the perimeter skills. I think Coach Hogerson. I mean, I know we criticize him a lot, but from what I'm seeing, I think he can lead them there. I feel objectively saying that. I don't have any confidence saying it. I wouldn't bet my money saying that, but the talent that they have and the way that Donovan Smith continues, because he's still learning on the fly in regards to being the man. And so I can see him, this interception that he learned today, I think that's a learning experience. I can see him learning from that, is erasing that, and even playing even better going on down the line and winning these games, because I think he got it. The it factor with he got it. I just think that now he's learning. He take away that, maybe not have that fumble, which they're not his fault, but maybe he recognized to get just little things that I think a quarterback that he can do and he can learn as the players continue to learn and believe. I think that Houston is not too far off from my opinion, from what I'm seeing.
We'll see. I salute your positivity. I truly do. But I don't want to see them take a step back next Saturday at K-State. I know it's a road game, but I mean a step back in the sense of no effort, defense struggles, offense struggles, those kind of steps back. Road games in the Big 12, road games in any good conference are going to be difficult. But if the Cougs take a step back next Saturday, then I'll be disappointed.
What do you guys define as a step back before you go in? It's hard to cut you off. Apologize. What? Just so fans.
No, poor defense, poor tackling, poor offense. A 20 yards in the first half.
Because if you can give up X amount of yards and maybe they go 2 for 10 in the red zone, and you know what I'm saying? I just want to be clear.
30 yards in the first half offensively. How about that? That's poor. And giving up 300. That's poor. That's a step back. Yeah.
What I was gonna say, Deon, to your point originally about them slowly building it up into a Big 12 contender potentially, was how many recruits were there in attendance today, Kris? So it was more than they had at TCU, which was
Coach Hogerson said upwards of 300.
Which
more than 250 and almost 300.
A game like today, that is something that you can start winning over a lot of those recruits. It was a packed house, like you attendance over 42,800. By the way, do you know off the top of your head, is that more than the Louisville game, the Lamar Jackson Louisville game? I'm trying to look that up.
Sure, yeah, I'm not sure, but I because have they sent out the stats yet? Because about the final numbers, that's a record. Let's see.
They just sent it. They just sent the stats. I don't know if they acknowledge it. But the point that I wanted to make was that is the type of performance that you are proud of, and that you can start to win over a lot of those recruits against one of the best teams, a top 10 team in the country that you were right there on the last offensive drive of the game to potentially pull off the upset. Consistent performances like that week in and week out, to your point, Kris, that's how you start to turn around the program. Now, whether they're able to do that is going to be another question. And I guess we're going to see next week when they have to travel and play Kansas State.
And y'all know I'm an alum. Folks are new to Let's Rage Coogs. I'm a proud UH alum. But Rex is correct here as well. Lots of UT fans helped attendance today. I hope that it's more every game. You know, don't take the Longhorns coming to the stadium to fill it up. You come see the Cougs play, not the opponent. So I'd prefer 80-20 Houston. That's what I want to see. 80-20 Houston.
According, they did not top it. They were 10 fans short. That Louisville game was 42,822 in attendance. Today's game against the Longhorns was 42,812. So they just missed out on being able to surpass 10 people. They were 10 people short, according to the official attendance that they just gave out. They just sent the final stat book on the scoring sheet, which has the official attendance for today's game between Houston and Texas. 912. But
Rusty, this point is true. Though the overall record is lopsided, some of the most humiliating UT losses have been to the Cougars. That is true. Today was nearly another one. UT ain't going to play us if they aren't forced, and that's probably a bowl game matchup. That's probably the only way they would do it. I hope somewhere in the future it happens and it's scheduled and not a bowl game matchup. I just doubt it. Too many of them don't respect UH. Don't respect UH enough to want to compete against UH because they would see, even if the Cougs were on a nationally relevant again, they would still see it as, oh, we lost to Houston. Oh, ick. They're beneath us. How dare we lose to Houston? They still think we're no. Mm-mm. Hope I'm wrong. Might take a long time, but hope I'm wrong on that one.
Oklahoma's shown they don't have no problem playing against Houston with the home and home they just set up. It's the Longhorns thing.
Different fans, though. Different administration, different folks.
Definitely. When we look at this game, no, not to be hypercritical, but that is what we do. We are a post-game show. Something that could have played a factor was those 2 timeouts that Houston had to burn in the very beginning of the third quarter. And the second one in particular, where I'm not entirely too sure what happened there. It looked like Dana Holgorsen was most definitely, he was pissed off because I don't know if he was pissed off at Doug Belk or something. And then Doug Belk looked confused and he was angry in his own right because it looked like both of them had no idea who called the timeout.
Right. It looked like Doug Belk said, "Who called timeout?"
He definitely did. If you read his lips, that's definitely what he tells. And I don't know if he's telling Dana or if he's trying to look to see who called timeout. They were both pissed off that they had to waste those 2 timeouts, and ultimately, potentially, they ended up playing a factor.
Yeah, and I hope our colleagues brought that up in post game to get Dana's answer to it, because it was just weird because the clock was winding down, and then next thing we see, the official says Houston calls timeout on defense. What? So yeah, that was a weird one, and it could, it was costly. And Dana was pissed, but I don't know who he was pissed at. Players, staff, don't know.
Small things here and there that ultimately turned out to be the difference in the game. Let's talk about the receiving corps for Houston because they showed out. That's one of those positions that you've been high on. It's going back to the offseason. That's a position that heading into the season, there was one group, they're Big 12 ready. That definitely was the position, and they proved it. They balled out. All 3 players in Sam Brown, Matthew Golden, and Joseph Manjack. Now, of course, they weren't perfect with a couple of key mistakes, specifically when it comes to the final possession with the penalty. But if it wasn't for those receivers, this game would have never been in a position to potentially have a walk-off upset.
Dalton Carnes too.
And they consistently beat man-to-man today. That's one thing that I was impressed with. Manjack, Brown, and Golden consistently beat man-to-man. They did a good job of recognizing the coverage and making adjustments in the second half. I got to give credit to Coach Holgorsen as well for making those adjustments, realizing the coverage that they're getting, and calling shorter, crisper inside breaking routes and being able to beat that man to coverage, or if they're identified, do drag routes to make them have to see through the man coverage. And so the receivers, man, they can compete against any level week in, week out. Matthew Golden, I think, had his best game of the year. Sam Brown, I think he could have had even a better game. He make that first catch. He's next level. I mean, I see next level in him. All 3 of those receivers are really, really good. I mean, Manjack is a good possession receiver, can break tackles, tough. They all complement each other really, really well. I like how Donovan spread the ball well around and even got their tight end, McLaughlin, I think maybe 1 or 2 catches. But the receiver corps is ready. Offensive line gave Donovan enough time. I think I'm just seeing a lot of progression overall offensively. And I mean, as much as when I criticize Hogan, I got to give him that same credit when he make those adjustments to get the offense going. But to Chris's point, they got to stop starting slow. Like, what's taking so long in the game to call it up? Why not make an adjustment? I mean, I don't know. Whatever it is, it's different things. We can't just pinpoint one thing, but the offense cannot keep starting slow.
And that's an issue in Rusty. I checked the stats. 9 different receivers caught a pass today. So once again, Donovan's spreading it out, and that's what you like to see. Take advantage of it. And Manjack got speed. He's got good hands too, but that what we thought was a touchdown and was ruled out down at the half-yard line based on what I don't know what the refs saw in the monitor booth that
horrible.
We don't.
That's the
I guess
Texas
we don't see.
Play call, ref call.
Because even the Fox Crew's own officiating supervisor said there's no camera, goal line camera to get a better angle. And yet, minutes later, they turned it over and reversed the touchdown call. Based on what? What did you see? Because there is no camera there. So what did you see to overturn that? Cougs still scored, but offense has to start better, and the defense has to start better. It's like the defense is taking the opening drive to figure out what the opponent is doing. Got to figure that out.
It was a foreshadow of what was to come. By the way, also got to give a shout out to Dalton Carnes as well. The walk-on made big plays, big catches. He was one of those 9 different receivers that caught a pass. Matthew Golden, 7 catches for 88 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. Joseph Manjack was phenomenal. Joseph Manjack always ends up making some clutch catch every time for Houston. He just always seems to be in the right spot. He had 6 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown of himself. Like I mentioned, Carnes, he had 5 catches for 68 yards. Samuel Brown, 4 catches for 80 yards. And just top to bottom, that was a big reason. That was a key reason why they were able to be in the position they were at the end of the game. And even then, like Dayon, you mentioned, against man coverage, against a Texans Longhorn defense that's just littered with 5-star, 4-star recruits, the cream of the crop when it comes to high school recruits. And they were consistently leaving them in the dust. And give kudos to Donovan Smith overall for his performance after that first quarter, outside of that interception. When he's hot, when he's on fire and he's on point, I don't think I haven't seen any, well, when it comes to, if you're going to, not to compare Clayton Tune and Donovan Smith, but the ball he throws when he's on point, it's one of the best balls that I've seen thrown live. So
yeah, that deep pass to Manjack was
on the money.
It was superb, man. It was right there.
He missed a couple throws in the game, but no quarterback is perfect. But I just see a maceration of him realizing maybe a little bit of timing. I could just see him taking that next step and putting it all together and potentially being a first round. He got that potential to be a first round draft pick with his measurables, his talent. I think for me, in my opinion, just showing to be consistently that he can do it over a full season. But as far as his efficiency, his decisiveness, his completion percentage, all those things are well. I think he's being coached well, and he's playing to his strengths. They're playing to his strengths. I think here and there he misses a couple throws, and I mean that 4 or 5 plays always decide a football game.
But it's curious to me how the O-line does such a solid job pass blocking, but is struggling big time run blocking. I don't know what it is. Technique is different. What they're doing off the line, off the snap, it's something. Because they have done a much better job keeping Donovan upright. But the run game, if it's not Donovan scrambling, it's struggling. And today was another example of that struggle.
I'm reading a statement Joseph Duarte of the Chronicle just tweeted, and he said that this was a statement released by the University of Houston that says, the University of Houston says the University of Texas Longhorn Band requested 400 tickets, which were fulfilled and accounted for by UH. During the course of the week, the Longhorn Band asked for additional seats. Houston worked to accommodate that additional request based on the availability and demand, the statement said. So I don't know, I'm trying to find that statement in itself, but maybe that's something about Houston and Texas and seat drama that I guess just a tradition that continues to have to happen when these two programs meet on the football field. But I digress. Looking ahead for the rest of football season, Houston sits at 3-4. They need 3 more wins to be bowl eligible. What needs to happen in order for the Cougars to reach that watermark, that benchmark? And they have winnable games coming. When you think of Cincinnati, you think of Baylor, which nowhere near close to the level that you expected them to be in the off season.
I
Of
think
course,
all of these
have
games are
UCF,
winnable. I don't think no game on their schedule is a game that you can look at and say, "Oh, we can't win that game."
Kansas State, and Oklahoma State. So 2 home games left, and that's Cincinnati and Oklahoma State. Rest are on the road. Down, what needs to happen in order for Houston to be able to come away with those wins?
Man, there isn't one thing. I think overall they have to control what they control and not beat themselves. You got to try to eliminate the penalties, in which they didn't have a lot of penalties, but the time the penalties that they had hurt them. I think as well as you can try to eliminate those turnovers and just give yourself a chance to win. I think they're going to make the plays game in and game out. The defense is going to be able to get stops at certain points to get the offense the ball back. Like I sound like a broken record, just continue to play complementary football in certain spots. And if the offense is maybe having a slow start, then the defense. I mean, really, just I think Donovan Smith, he's the key. Forget all the X's and O's talk. Donovan Smith is the key. I think he has what it takes to do so. I think he's the type of quarterback that can overcome maybe mediocre offensive coaching, or maybe mediocre coaching. I think if he continues to grow in these situations, make more smarter plays, make more plays, put the ball in the receiver's hands more plays, then Houston can get it done. I like what I've seen from the defense from game in and game out. I think they've gotten better. I think their D-line has played better. And so the defense is doing their part. Offense is doing their part. Now it's just for them learning how to win as a team and executing down the stretch to win those games. That's the difference. Execution, not beat yourselves.
Kris, what say you?
Consistency. But think about this. I think, was it after week 1, week 2, there were some folks saying that Donovan Smith should take a seat because he wasn't playing well. Remember that? Had the backup QB came in, looked good. San Francisco State, it's a chance for Donovan to take a break and see what the Cougs have. I'm not saying that anymore. Donovan's playing well. He's carrying the offense. But consistency, that first quarter better starts in the first quarter on both sides of the ball. And Dan touched on it in previous shows. The team, one game, the special teams let everybody down. Some game, the offense takes too long to get started. Some game, the defense takes too long to get started. These last 5 games, if all 3 phases play well in the same game, then they have a chance to win all 5 of these games. That's the question again.
Especially on the road.
Performance, second quarter on today, raise the bar. This is what I expect from them the rest of the season. It's up to them to show it and get it done on the field.
Add on to both of y'all's points, head coach Dana Holgorsen actually said that to the radio, I guess, would it be called the broadcast, but he told Jeremy Branham at the halftime when he interviewed him, he says, it's amazing how good a football team can look like when they are playing complementary football, specifically when it came to the offense, because they started driving down the field and they scored those 2 touchdowns. Most importantly, they allowed the defense to get much needed rest, and that combined with some questionable play calls from Steve Sark, led to Houston having momentum and being on the verge. Let's go. Whenever they got that 4th down stop, burn those 2 timeouts, unable to capitalize when they got in that 3rd and long situation. Donovan Smith got sacked, fumbled, but even then, holding them to a field goal, they were close. They weren't able to make the big play. Ultimately, they got them over the hump. And in many ways, you could say that is what separates Houston from not only Texas, but being one of those top tier teams in the Big 12, at least as of now, today, October 21st. We're here talking about Houston and Texas.
You know, they're close, but they got to do it and show it. We see glimpses here and there. We've seen offensive excellence here and there. We've seen defense play well, sacks up the middle, pressure, pressure on the ends. Got to see it for 4 quarters. And then get that done. And who knows? Coug fans, you might as well start accepting the fact that Dana's going to be back next year.
As we start to wind down here on today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, I'd like to remind that you are watching and or listening to Let's Rage Coogs presented by the Lazarine Law Firm. Dan Lazarine founded the Lazarine Law Firm to provide legal representation to individuals who have been injured or arrested in the greater Houston area, including the surrounding counties such as Harris, Fort Bend County here in Texas. Mr. Lazarine understands that bad things sometimes happen to good people, where false allegations are made every day. If you have been injured or find yourself in other legal trouble, call the Lazarine Law Firm at 281-720-8551 or visit Dan online at www.lazarinelawfirm.com for consultation. Of course, we also like to say thank you to our secondary sponsor for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, and that is Star Pizza with multiple locations across the Houston area. Star Pizza is your go-to stop before or after the game. Next week's matchup for the Houston Cougars at Kansas State, it's going to be an early one, an 11 a.m. kickoff. It's been a while since the Houston Cougars had to kick off at 11 in the morning, but it's going to be an interesting challenge to see where Houston, what the intensity level is like against K-State compared to where it was today against the Longhorns.
I think the confidence level has to be high within the locker room and in the football program amongst the players. Over their Big 12 games, I think they should feel like if they clean up what they can control in regards to penalties, turnovers, and maybe missed tackles, just little things in regards to their control, that I would think that they can feel that they can go and compete and win some of these games.
We'll see. I hope you're right, because in a sense, K-State is a good team, solid program. But even some fans might think, well, it's not Texas. As long as the players can maintain that level of getting up for opponents and not just the big name opponents, that's a sign of maturity going forward for a program. So we'll see what they do. 11 a.m. next Saturday. I think the game's going to be on ESPN2.
I think most importantly, just if you look at the remaining games on the schedule, and Chris, you're absolutely right, it's going to be on ESPN2 for the 11 a.m. kickoff. Next year, Texas and Oklahoma are gone. I think there's an opportunity for Houston to see that.
For anybody, the door's open next season.
There's going to be power. There's going to be someone that has to step up and take it. And if Houston was able to compete with Texas and were able to knock off West Virginia, they've shown that they've been able to compete with Texas Tech and TCU for half. Momentum. Maybe they can carry momentum into next football season and build from there.
Well, all Coug fans know, Coug supporters know it, said it. It'd be good for the football team to prove it next season and going forward. Big 12 schools, teams have been afraid of the Cougs being in a power conference because they're afraid of what that would entail. More revenue, better talent, better facilities, all those things, because they've always been afraid that if Houston got all those things, they'd be the king of the mountain. The door's open next year, starting next year, with the Horns and Sooners gone, for someone to start assuming that mantle. We'll see who it's going to be.
And I think they're climbing that mountain step by step, piece by piece, maybe slip here and there. I think they're on the way up from what I'm seeing, in my opinion. Those things that you mentioned, the recruits are much better. And they continue to build on that, along with continue to get some of these top tier transfers. I think they're right there.
Because there's one thing, I forget if it was Tim Brando or Spencer said during the game, that a lot of the Longhorn, not a lot, but many of the Longhorn players were from the Houston area. Going forward, you cut that in half or even more, keep them here at Houston. Man, that's what teams are afraid of happening at Houston.
Think of the trickle-down effects, because that's not only impacting Texas, that's also impacting that other school just a little bit north when it comes to Aggie land. Of course, just across the Big 12 in general, when you think of TCU, Texas Tech, all those programs, even Oklahoma, and the hotbed that is Houston for football recruiting. And yeah, the talent pool in the city in and of itself is certainly deep, and you can start making a significant dent in that from a lot of these programs. The Houston program itself is going to look much different, potentially 2 years, even shorter down the road. They are able to start making a dent, and I think a game like today could go a long way to being able to start chipping away at that recruiting pool that some other programs outside of Houston had in the market.
Let's hope so. Out of the 300 recruits, coach didn't say, obviously you can't say who they were, whatever like that, but if they were superior, talent-wise, very top 4-star, 5 stars, whatever you want to say, but talented players, impact Big 12 players, and they decide, this is where I want to stay. I want to stay home. That's part of the building of the program and becoming nationally relevant. Obviously, you can't get all of the 5 stars in the Houston area, but if they start getting 20% of those and keep them from going to Texas, going to LSU, going to Oklahoma, going to A&M, that is a huge step forward for the program.
And that's pretty much going to do it for today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs. Of course, you like to recap that to the final score. Number 8, Texas comes down to TDCU Stadium, and they get into a dogfight. They got everything they could have asked for and more, but certainly a scare as they escape Houston 31-24 with a victory. And most importantly for the Longhorns, it's going to be interesting to see the status of their star quarterback in Quinn Ewers, who had to go out of the game. That could ultimately determine how far they go, as they still have hopes for making the college football playoff, although they're kind of battling an uphill battle in that regard. But Kris, I'm going to toss it over to you. Any final points that you want to make, and where can people find you?
Thank you, Andy. Thank you, Deion. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in to Let's Rage Coogs. We hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for your support always. Cougs were close. They were close to proving Andy's guarantee correct, but officiating, interception, fumble here, the Cougs came up short. But again, the performance today, second through fourth quarter, raised the bar for me for expectations. Let's see what they do starting next Saturday morning at K-State. Follow me at HoustonRoundBallReview.com and let's go to Linktree/Houston Roundball Review for all the other links social media wise as well. If you are a Rocket fan, I'm going to have a Rockets post-game show. Well, let's talk Houston Rockets probably around 8:30, 9 o'clock tonight. So come back to or go to the Houston Roundball Review on YouTube. As always, we appreciate it, and we'll see you next Saturday.
My name is Andy Yanez. You can find me on X at Ayanez_5. Most importantly, if you are watching on the Pod Slamma Jamma YouTube channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button. If you are new to the channel, or it's the first time ever discovering the Let's Rage Coogs post-game show. We do this after each and every men's basketball and football game, period. That's why we are the Let's Rage Coogs post-game show. And if you're watching us on the Houston Roundball Review YouTube channel, be sure to hit the subscribe button on that channel as well. Audio only platforms, be sure to give us some ratings, and we thank you for your time. Of course, big shout out to the Lazarine Law Firm for being a primary sponsor on today's episode of Let's Rage Coogs, and also Star Pizza for being a secondary sponsor. As always, Dan, I'll toss it over to you. Close us out.
You can find me on all social media platforms at Dayon Dunlap. It's always a pleasure to join Kris and Andy on the original Houston Cougars post-game show, often imitated, but you can't duplicate it. And so, Houston fans, stay with this program. Players, keep chomping at it, keep hitting that rock. I think they're right there. I'm very impressed with the effort and the fight that I think now just a few plays away. But I think this program is headed in the right direction. I know we've been very critical, and rightfully so. We can only criticize what we see after each game. And so we appreciate all our fans, everyone sticking with us, join us, all the comments and everything. Of course, it's always go Cougs.